Hi guys, we are going to be taking notes on the cardiovascular system, which is also known as the circulatory system. Now, this one, just like the digestive system, is going to be very important, and we will be breaking it into two flip videos, so I do want to make sure that you take very detailed scenes. So the cardiovascular system consists of three parts: the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. Now, here we go, the function. The function of the cardiovascular system is to carry needed substances to the cells, like oxygen and glucose, and carries away waste products from the cells, like carbon dioxide. So, pretty much the one word, if you had to pick for the function of the cardiovascular system, is transportation. It's the transportation system. It's like all the highways and the roads and the streets in a city. The red blood cells would be like the cars that drive on those. So its whole job is to transport, deliver things to the cells, and carry around the waste. So make sure you put this in a big bubble box so we know the function. So let's talk about the structure of the heart. Okay? The heart has a right side and a left side. Now, when we're looking at this picture, you have to pretend like this on the left side is actually flipped. So it's like if I was to take this heart out of my body and then put it on the paper, it's kind of like when you look in a mirror and everything's going to be flipped. So you're just going to have to subconsciously in your mind know that when you're looking at a picture of a heart, the sides are going to be opposite. The true left of the heart is going to be on the right, and the true right of the heart is going to be on the left. Once you can just accept that, this will be a lot easier. Now, like we said, each side of the heart is divided into two sides, but each side also has two chambers. So all human hearts is what we consider to be a four-chambered heart. Each side consists of an atrium, which will be at the top, and then a ventricle, which is at the bottom. And the way you can always remember ventricle is it's like a V shape for ventricle. So you have a right atrium, a left atrium, a right ventricle, a left ventricle. Now, when we always show hearts, we always show red and blue. Red always represents the oxygenated blood, which means blood that is carrying oxygen, and blue represents unoxygenated blood, blood that is not carrying oxygen. Now, please realize you do not have blue blood at all. Now, I know some elementary teachers have taught you that, but your blood is always red. However, when your blood does become oxygenated, it does brighten up to a brighter red compared to the like real dark brownish red. But you do not have blue blood. Your veins are blue, but the blood inside is red. So I want you to think of the heart like a house, okay? Oh, sorry. So let's start with all the blood that comes from your body, okay? So you have two openings into the atrium, blood that comes from your upper body, blood that comes from your lower body. It goes into the atrium. When your heart beats, it opens a valve, okay? Your valves are like doors. The blood then leaves the atrium and goes into the ventricle. Now, the ventricle is going to be the last chamber before it leaves. Once the heart pumps again, all the blood is going to leave the right ventricle and go to the lungs. Now, notice it's blue. So that means it is unoxygenated. So why do you think it's going to go to the lungs? That's right. It's going to pick up oxygen. So let's pretend that all this blood has gone to the lungs and it's picked up oxygen. Now it's going to make its way back to the heart. And this time it's going to enter into the left atrium. This door enters from the right lung. This door enters from the left lung. Again, as the heart beats, it leaves the atrium, goes through the valve, which is like a door, into the left ventricle. And here will be its last stop in the heart completely before it makes a complete cycle. After it leaves the left ventricle, it will go out through the aortic valve, which is into the aorta, the largest artery in your entire body, where it will then divide up and go to the rest of your body to transport and deliver, that's right, oxygen. Now, once it's gone to every body cell, then guess what? It comes back into the right atrium. Okay, so just remember right atrium, right ventricle, right to the lungs. That's how I would remember it. It goes from the right ventricle right to the lungs because it has to do that immediately to pick up oxygen. Then to the left atrium, left ventricle to go to the body. So let's talk about some vocabulary. Your atrium is the upper chamber, and this is the part of the heart that receives all blood coming into the heart. Whether it's coming in from the body or it's coming in from the lungs, the atrium is always going to be the upper chamber and the first part of the heart that receives the blood. Then it will go through the valve into the ventricle, and the ventricle is the lower chamber that pumps the blood out of the heart. So atrium takes the blood in, ventricle is the lower chamber, sends the blood out. Now, valves, like we said, kind of like the doors, are flaps of tissue that prevent the blood from going backwards. Okay? We don't want blood to go in all directions. We want it to have a current. We want it to go in one direction. So after the blood leaves the atrium into the ventricle, the valve shuts. So blood can't go back in the opposite way. A pacemaker is in the right atrium, and it sends out signals to make the heart muscles contract. Now, even though when I was going back through this picture, and I was like left atrium, right atrium, every heartbeat, blood is in every valve and every chamber simultaneously. It's just going at the same rate. And now we know it's the right atrium that has the pacemaker. So make sure you're writing all these vocabulary words down along with the definition. So let's go into blood vessels. Arteries are blood vessels that always carry blood away from the heart. And here's a way to remember. A goes away. Arteries carry blood away from the heart, which means that they mainly carry oxygenated blood. Veins carry blood back to the heart. So they're the ones that are going to the right side of the body. And they tend to carry unoxygenated blood or oxygen poor blood. Capillaries are the very tiny vessels where the substances are actually exchanged between the blood and the body. So remember how I told you to think of the transportation like cities? Well, let's pretend that arteries are one-sided or one-way streets and veins are another one-way street. Capillaries are like the train stops. This is where they stop. Oxygen gets off, carbon dioxide gets on. So when you have an artery and it comes to a capillary, oxygen now leaves. So after a capillary ends, it turns into a vein. Once veins go all the way to the heart and they leave the heart completely, it goes back to an artery. So arteries will always be colored red because they tend to have oxygen-rich blood, and veins tend to be colored blue because they have oxygen-poor blood. And remember, capillary walls are only one cell layer thick. The reason for this is so substances can pass easily through them. They are the very small, tiny roads. They're like the back alleys where you have to go a lot slower. And the reason is so that that oxygen can diffuse, or, kind of like osmosis, through that one cell so it can enter the cell and carbon dioxide and waste can get on. Now, materials like oxygen and glucose pass from the blood into the body cells, and cellular waste, like carbon dioxide, move from the cells into the body. And then at that moment, like I said again, it turns into a vein. So here's a picture of like I was describing. You have an artery. Notice how it's red. It's carrying oxygen-rich blood, again, made out of smooth muscle. It then turns into a capillary. So notice how it breaks apart into a lot more numerous but smaller vessels. This increases surface area. One, it helps the blood to slow down, but it also increases surface area so more oxygen can get off, and more things can get in. So this is your capillary. Notice how it's going from a red to a purplish to a blue. Now that it's at the end of the capillary, it is not oxygen rich anymore. It's oxygen poor, so we call it a vein. All veins have valve flaps, And again, it's just like in the heart. It's to help prevent backflow, but also to help the body get the blood back to the heart. So my question, in which vessel do you think pressure is going to be the greatest? An artery, a capillary, or a vein? So write your answer on the left-hand side and circle it. So the heart-lung-body connection. So again, remember, we have to pretend this is the left and this is the right. Okay? So on the left side of your body, make sure that you have this in your notes. Try your best to draw the picture. Blood travels from the lungs to the heart and then to the body. So let's pretend that all the blood is leaving the body and it's going into your right atrium. It then goes into your right ventricle and then leaves from your pulmonary valve to your lungs. Now, guess what it's picking up here? Oxygen. So now you have oxygenated blood, which is oxygen-rich blood. So now that it has oxygen, it still needs that muscle, it needs that force to make it through the rest of your body. So it goes back to the heart. But this time it goes into the left atrium, then into the left ventricle, and then it will be pumped and go through the arteries to the rest of the body, where it will go to the capillaries, dropping off the oxygen, and now becoming oxygen poor, return to the heart through your veins. If you need to rewind this, please do so. So deoxygenated blood is oxygen poor blood. So the flow of blood in the heart. Oxygen poor blood is pumped into the right atrium. That is number one, right here. There you go. Then it goes into the right ventricle. Then it leaves the heart through the pulmonary artery, where it goes to the lungs to pick up oxygen. Now it comes back through the pulmonary vein, into the left atrium, into the left ventricle, where it will then leave the heart through the aorta to go to the rest of the body. And this is all, like I said, happening simultaneously. So that's where I want to stop. I know we kind of talked about a lot, but I want you to really make sure that you understand the heart and how blood flows through it. If you need to rewind this, I want you to draw a picture of the heart with all the valves, kind of showing me the flow of the blood, as well as that picture of the heart with the arteries, capillaries, and veins. Okay? I'll see you tomorrow.